So I'm Joel Hopper.
Joel, nice to meet you.
You are?
Trudy Baronick.
Trudy Baronick.
Joel, Terry Sweeney.
Terry Sweeney,
Yeah,
nice to meet you. Yes, yes. So we're here to talk about Turner Hall and what makes it special, what makes it something that has endured as a place of community in New Ulm for so long, when so many other things have passed away.
For me, it's a very personal thing. Turner Hall has been part of my life since I was a kid. I grew up about 2 blocks from here, and we would come over, we'd play baseball and kickball in what is today the parking lot, then was like a grassed field. And I like the fact that Turner Hall Park had trees. All the other parks had no trees, and I hate heat, so I would always make sure I got in the shade. So even as a little kid, it's a part of my life. Coming over to see Elmer Roloff's trains run around during festivals.
Yes. Yep.
A man had a little train set. Well, I shouldn't say little. As little kids, you'd ride on it. It was he made an oval track. It's really on the north side of the building yet. You can kind of see where it was mounded up. My parents played cribbage. They were cribbage champions down here in the late 60s and 70s, and I was proud of that. And so, as a little kid, Turner was part of my life. Of course, I didn't know the history of it and the importance that way. As a little kid, I always marvel at the Turner Parade Unit. It's a rectangular float, and it's a big circle. And inside, it was generally guys, but now it's ladies too. The gym people, or young people in the gym program, and they would be painted with silver or gold paint. And they would go by on the parade, and I'm a little 5-year-old kid, and they're holding a handstand or whatever. It's a cool place. I have this memory of Turner Hall ingrained in my head by watching that, and it still exists. There may have been a gap when we didn't do it, but they're still doing it in modern parades. Again,
you know, and
continuity.
my cousin Ted Marty and his other 2 cousins, they were gymnasts, and they would be the golden boys on those floats, and they would douse themselves in this glycerin gold paint, which was lethal. I mean, really...
James Bond, gold figure. Yeah.
You know, they died.
Suffocate.
Yeah.
She dies.
And Ted said, you know, we almost died because we couldn't sweat.
Yeah.
And you know, they do handstands, and now they do a non-lethal mixture.
Or even like a rubber suit.
Yeah, I think they do a rubber suit.
Still.
Yeah.
Had his son's wedding right outside here and upstairs.
That's right. Your son was married.
Stevie wanted to, and I thought about that. So my sons were born in Rochester, but they were young when we moved back to New Ulm. And Steve's a proud New Ulmite, and he insisted his wedding was going to be at Turner Hall. He wanted to add his name to that list of connected people and stuff. It was a big deal for him to have his wedding here.
And the ceremony.
Yeah,
was
ceremony
held.
was outside, everything else upstairs.
Wow.
So it's getting on 160 years now.
Well, and my great-great-grandfather was August Schell, who was one of the 13 charter members of Turner Hall. In fact, his photo was upstairs in the Founders Hall. And I did not move to New Ulm until I was 10 years old. So I did not grow up in the Turner tradition, but my mother did. My parents and grandparents and great-grandparents did not go to any church. They were members of the Turner Society, and the Turners were agnostics. They had broken away from the Catholic and Lutheran churches. Nobody went to church. They came to Turner Hall on Sundays, and the kids went to Sunday school. I don't know what they learned, but...
I like that you use the word agnostic rather than atheist, because how often do we hear that Turners were atheists?
No, they were not.
There may have been some that were, but as a broad statement, no. I have read that the Turner motto was, of course, a sound mind in a sound body, but part of that meaning was you should educate yourself to the extent that you can come to a relationship with God of your own volition. You didn't need, I don't want to pick on Catholic people, but an upline, so to speak, to tell you what to do. You should be able to intellectually grasp that yourselves, or in good conversation with friends to come up with it. And that's a difference than being an atheist.
Right. So I think originally it was education. It was not so much social, but more education and
Well, physical fitness still.
yes. And the person who started the Turnverein movement was Frederick Jahn, okay, and he was the inventor of modern gymnastics, and he started the Turnverein movement because Napoleon had just overrun Germany, and you know the German youth just capitulated, you know, hardly even fought.
Yeah.
And so Frederick Jahn said, well, these young people don't, you know, they need to be strengthened. So he,
If only we were stronger of mind and spirit, we could have beat
yes,
them.
so that's how
Yeah.
he started that.
And then here on the frontier, it was the same mindset, and it played into the Civil War in much the same way. It proved that it served its function at that time, but it was a way before the World Wars of preserving the German culture. It was one of those things that New Ulm was created to be kind of like a German haven, right? It was
A utopian.
Yeah.
It was,
really.
yes,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
really was founded as that.
So
what-
Trudy, I
Go
gotta
ahead, go ahead,
Joe.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right. So I'm 64 now. I graduated from high school in 1973. 2 days after graduating, June 1st of 73, the drinking law goes to 18. As the media said, we were now instant adults. Well, what that meant is the bars were packed. They were truly packed. I have half a tooth as a result of the. That's another film story. But 5 of us joined Turner Hall in '74. A year later, to get away from the packed bars. So we paid our membership dues so we could come up here, drink with the old guys who are probably our age now. But for me thinking back, we played basketball, used the sauna. So even as a young guy, I was a Turner member
That is
to
something.
get away from the packed bars.
That is amazing.
could do everything here,
Yeah.
which is weird. You know, we were kind of talking a little bit, and you said what high school has a pub in the basement,
Yeah.
and I said, yeah, what Anytime Fitness has a pub in the basement. There was a place where everything was in one,
You're right.
and you got people from all those different cultural things all in one place, crossing paths. And
Joel, you had talked about what was it like? I moved away when I was 27. I lived in the cities for a year, mainly in Rochester, but always with the goal of coming back home. And I moved home in 1995. And I actually have a history degree from Mankato State and could tell you all about Europe and all of that, but I couldn't tell you a thing, hardly, about my family or my town. Well, it was a stage of life because I met a nurse in Rochester, imagine that, right? And so my wife agreed, she's not from here, but she agreed to move to New Ulm with me. And I have 2 little boys. And so I could now, moving back home, I could see history. I saw my little Steve and Sam, I saw me and my wife Ellie, and I saw my mom and dad and sisters. I could see 3 generations of history. And then I got big into my town's history and my family history. And part of the town history was kind of discovering this at a different stage of life when the history part of it made more sense to me. And I don't know that I joined the Turnverein immediately, but within a couple of years I was a member and still am. And learning Turner history and how integral it is to New Ulm. I wrote something here and I said I'm going to even put my glasses on to read it because it made a lot of sense to me. It may sound silly, but every single time I sit at the bar to enjoy a Schell's beer, to have a celebratory meal, or to attend an event or wedding, I connect in my head with the generations of New Ulm's past citizens who did the same thing, going back to the founding of my town. And to me, Turner Hall is New Ulm. That's a pretty big honking statement, but I'll stand by it. I think I don't think less of anybody who doesn't join the group or doesn't frequent it, but I think they miss out on something. I think some people have different opinions of Turner. I think some people still, amazingly, have this idea it's a group of agnostics and their religion is taboo. That's just not true at all anymore. That's 100 years old.
No, yeah, it is.
But I think if you don't do something at Turner, come to the 4th of July picnic.
I just would like to read a couple of quotes from older people that I interviewed way back in 1996, all of whom are dead now. I have played many a card game in the Turner Club Room, which is this room. My favorite game was Scott, S-K-A-T. I joined the Turnverein in 1913 when I was 18 years old. No woman would ever have come into the bar in those days, not even a loose one.
Well, when you see old pictures, there's very few ladies in the
No, there's no women.
They have their separate room, right, upstairs, the Damensimmer.
Very good,
Oh.
very good. You did your homework.
I tried. Like you, it's become fascinating. Fascinating. Being in New Ulm, there is such an awareness of history, more so than other places. And I think because it has become such a tension point, where I was imagining it at those crucial stages in Turner's history too, where you had World War I, and then you had Prohibition, and then you had World War II, and then you had suburbanization in the 50s and people moving out, and a lot of Turners were affected by that because they're primarily a city.
Was it World War I when they boarded up the murals, or was it World War II?
One.
Okay.
You know, we can never definitively find, we're a little off topic, but to the point of the murals, how these gorgeous things, I imagine when Mr. Methua painted these, because this part of the building is new then, 1873, I think, like that. And then he paints these, and I just imagine the pride the locals must have. Holy cow! Oh, Hans, remember that's where we lived, and all of those connections became so personal. And then World War I comes with the Turners against the war. That's Germans, Europe's war, not ours, and on. That's a whole story too. But how these got painted over and plywood panels put over eventually, and then, all this was lost, and yet the Turners knew it was here. They knew it was back there.
Yep.
And then finally the Carol Elijah movement in '98, with Richie Runk, the manager, to reveal these. And a funny story on that murals. So a man named Carol Elijah is not from here. His wife is from Lafayette, 10, 15 miles north, and they moved to New Ulm. And he's down at the bar having a couple beers with the boys, and word comes out, underneath all of this green paint are these beautiful murals. But we, 3 generations, haven't seen them. There's a little bit behind the bar, you can see something, but you couldn't tell what it was. And Carol says, and he told me, these are his words to me. I used to work at the Chamber of Commerce, and he told me, he said, if you boys don't mind, me and my son used to restore buildings. I'll have a go at it, with your permission. And so he went, I don't know where, I have it in my head it was that corner. He gets a ladder, solvents, and rags, and he's up there.
And with masking tape.
Well then, after a while, he goes, he sees, yes, there's something there. He says, but it'll kill me to do this, breathing in fumes for how many years? So he uses 250,000 feet of duct tape.
Yes.
and people are going, what the hell, duct tape? And he said, you put it
complex
on,
restoration process.
And so the thought to the people was, that makes sense, but we don't want you to wreck the murals. Well, the murals are fresco. That is wet plaster, so it sucks the paint in. It's not a skim coat that can be pulled off. It is the plaster. And 2 years of his life and 250,000 feet of duct tape. Of course, being the good tourism promoter guy, I wrote off to 3M immediately. Have I got a deal for you guys? They never bid on it though. But so I credit Carol Elijah a lot for this, because what the estimates were $150,000 or in that range to have a professional come in and do this, which we didn't have, and it wouldn't have come back otherwise.
I know.
Well, one of the things, Joel, you had asked me before that we started filming here to talk about what it's like to be here. You can hear some background noise. There is a group here that's unofficially called the 3 O'Clock Club. And what that means is that, give or take, about 3 o'clock, a group of, it varies, but there might be 30, 40 people in it. I consider myself a semi-regular member. Will show up around here and just have good times. Just sit for 2, 3, 4 hours and tell stories and have a great time. Well, and so it's still going on. You can hear the music or the discussion in the background. Brian Filson, I think it was when Kurt and Donna Lambrecht retired about 5 years ago. Longtime business owners retired, and we had a big big like civic celebration out at the Holiday Inn. And Brian Filson is this disc jockey with the radio station, long for 35 years or so. And Brian's great at this. He knows how to work the crowd. And he says, he kind of caught everybody off guard. He says, so how many of you have got a college education? You know, maybe a third of the hands went up or something. He said, well, don't worry, the rest of you, there's hope for you. You don't need to spend the money to go to college. Just come down to Turner Hall at 3 o'clock every day and you'll gain as much wisdom as you need to have. And there's great truth in that. There's a little silliness in that too, but so that kind of that's why I like coming at 3 o'clock or what have you. It's a lot of crazy talk and it's fun. It's a great time.
And my husband usually comes here on Sunday afternoons at about 2:30. You know, to sit at the bar to get the pulse of the community.
There you go. There you go.
Oh my goodness.
But to me, always the continuity. This is where, essentially, give or take a couple of years, where New Ulm started. And that sense of history took, and maybe I'm the only one, I know I'm not the only one who feels this. The fact that I'm doing what people did 150 years. The same thing, different context, you wear a different shirt, but essentially it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And so maybe, I'm glad we talked about this because I never gave consideration to why. And I think one of the keys to our success is the multiple bits all tied together.
I think
as
that
weird as it is.
The original Turner thing must have been successful on some level. And maybe it wasn't just the Turner Hall, but I think part of it is the German culture has been so well preserved.
Yeah.
And the Turner sound mind and a sound body, it's the approach to the whole human, to the whole being, the person as a whole, which is so practical. And I think you see that here too, that there's something for every part, that the guys you tumble in the gym with, you sit and drink a beer at the pub. You know, our life is so subdivided in modern society, where we have the place we go to do this, and we have a different place where we go to do this, and different friends over here, and that this is kind of like a...
You can come and do multiple
things. And where all of you can be stimulated, and it's associated with a place, the same place and the same people and a whole community, a culture.
I'm glad we talked about that. I hadn't thought that deeply about it. I think you're onto something.
I'd like to read a quote from my little booklet. I interviewed a Turner Hall member by the name of Jim Schutzel. And he used to be on the Turnverein board. What makes Turner Hall so much fun is the diversity of its membership and its unique social setting. My wife and I were in the club room on a recent Friday night, and the entire social spectrum of New Ulm was represented. There were even some firemen visiting from Germany. Stan Carta and Benny Seifert's little combo was playing, and everyone was singing the Schnitzelbank and dancing and having a ball.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
good.
What?
Schutzel was just here too.
Oh, he was. Okay.
I get for 15 years I was the tourism manager at the Chamber of Commerce. And so prior to that I was a travel agent. So tour and travel is a big part of my life. And I get such a kick out of today. I can be a 3 o'clock club member and you get some new people in from wherever. And they look around. I mean, this room has been called by Dan Hoisington in a nomination the most Germanic room in the United States. That's a subjective thing. How do you quantify that? But it's still, argue it, let's argue it because we'll probably win anyway. But for me to be in here and see visitors come in and they're just in awe of the room. And then you start telling them little bits of history. You don't even have to go very far in history and they're just, really? Wow, this is so neat. And I think maybe to one of your points, Joel, earlier, how life is compartmentalized, it's people move away. To have a 3-generation family in a town is going to be a rarity in 20, 30 years.
Absolutely.
And so to have something that's been around and still vibrant is a true word, for this long is pretty cool to see other visitors. I feel a real proud New Ulmite when I see that happening.
Yeah, that is. We have it on smaller scales. Like, I've got a couple of my grandpa's old pipes. It's like this is one of those that you can move around in and do what your grandpa did.
Yeah.
It's a bigger thing than that.
You're right. That's a good viewpoint.
Yeah.
Well, I'm done and I gotta pee.
Yep, I'm
Edit
done.
that out.
No, that's the perfect closer right there.